Hello everyone, this is Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about a massive storm coming, bringing multiple rounds of severe weather, including tornadoes and a dangerous flash flooding setup, as well as a major snowstorm and Arctic air. So welcome back everyone. I appreciate all my followers out there and all the new followers. Happy New Year's Eve. I would love to reach 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and you see I'm literally about 600 away. So if you hadn't subscribed already, it's easy to do. All you have to do is click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell and get notified when I do my daily updates, and I do them very often in the morning time. So we got a lot to talk about. We got some serious situation kind of unfolding over the next several days that you need to be made weather aware. So I please ask you to share this video with your friends and family that may be impacted from these storms in these risk areas that we're going to be talking about. So let's take a look at the overall map for this morning. You can see the radar depiction and some of the cold air that's well to the north. We're talking 27 below zero. That is some frigid stuff, and it's going to be making a plunge down southward. Right now, they're dealing with some showers and thunderstorms in around the Birmingham area and portions of the southeast. But there's portions of, say, Seattle and Portland where they dealt with all the colder air as of late. They got 2 more cold days to come, but then I think it warms up for them, and then the rain returns back with just rain and not actually snow for the rest of next week. But for the rest of the country, let's take a look at the overall hazard map, because there's a lot going on. So let's just kind of break this down. We talked about this very dynamic, very strong low-level jet pumping in and bringing some very excessive, massive winds to Colorado. Unfortunately, that came to fruition last night with all the dangerous fires that took place. Over 600 homes are completely destroyed and businesses. My heart truly goes out for those people out there. It's been dangerously dry, and this snow did not come soon enough. I mean, it's going to come in this afternoon and going to kind of smolder a lot of the fires that's taking place right now with the extremely heavy winds. We actually talked about 123 mile per hour winds possibility on this channel a couple days ago, and we had confirmed reports of 115 mile per hour wind gusts, and that set up the dangerous fires that took place yesterday. But now we got snow coming in with those winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories, and that heavy snow that falls over the mountains of Colorado and gets into Denver. And then that will push off to the east where they have winter weather advisories. And all these areas in purple typically imply about 1 to 5 inches of snowfall. So areas in and around Nebraska, going into Kansas, portions of central and northern Missouri, southern Iowa here, and then all these pink shaded areas, that is your winter storm warning, and the blues are winter storm watches. That's typically implies about 4 to 8 inches of snow potential within these pink and blue shaded areas. And yes, that does include Chicago, which I think they'll be going over a warning here shortly. But to the south, you see this green. This is going to be a dangerous flash flooding setup, as well as a significant severe threat that we're going to be going over. They already have flash flood watches in place for northern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, getting in pretty much the entire state of Kentucky, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana, where I do expect some dangerous flash flooding to be setting up. And then we have those freeze watches down here to the south. So areas that have not actually seen a freeze so far this season are going to be expecting one after the severe threat ends. And then that Arctic plunge with those much colder temperatures that will go over. But right now we're in the warm sector in the southeast, and that's indicative of all the fog advisories out there. We got a lot of warm air pumping in from the Gulf of Mexico, and that is going to set the stage for a multiple day severe weather outbreak, unfortunately. So we'll go over all this. Here is the latest wind speeds on the 500 millibar. That is some significant low-level jet that brought all the very high winds into portions of the midsection of the country, and that is just pumping in and just pulling in the extremely warm Gulf moisture, and that is going to set the stage with a lot of energy in the atmosphere for that severe weather that we're going to be highlighting. In fact, for today, which is typically going to be really an overnight event for tonight for New Year's Eve, the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted a marginal risk for severe weather extending from Abilene. That's where I think it starts to really kind of get going into the overnight hours. We're talking after midnight. Goes into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and then the marginal risk extends all the way across through the entire state of Kentucky. And within, I think they get a little bit stronger once they leave Dallas, once they get into sort of Saturday morning, as we go into Wichita Falls, going into northeast Texas, southeastern Oklahoma, and goes into Little Rock, and as well this extends all the way into Nashville into Bowling Green. So this is your kind of Friday night, Saturday type setup, and some of those could be tornadic as well. The Storm Prediction Center has highlighted a 2% of some tornadoes, possibly. Some of the dynamics could come together to warrant a tornado watch within about 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. time frame in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But it's going to be initiating. That's where the start of the initiation is going to be taking place. But I think it really starts to get its act together once it starts leaving Dallas and heads towards Arkansas and goes into Jackson, as well as going into Nashville here. That's a little bit more prevalent of seeing a possible tornado within this first sector. And that's just kind of some of the beginning of things to come with this severe weather threat, because the low level jet really starts to get cranking as it really starts to deepen and pulls in some of that warm Gulf moisture. We're talking dew points in the low 70s. That's an extremely high for this time of year. That's ample amount of moisture that's going to be able to pump up with the low level jet here, and it's really going to start to get active. And man, look at the water vapor transport as we get into Saturday. That is really significant. It's almost off the chart, and that's why they have that flash flood watches in place in a moderate risk for excessive rainfall too. So we could be looking at a significant flash flooding threat on top of the severe weather threat within this sector from northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, going in through Tennessee and almost the entire state of Kentucky. So let's go over the details. But all the shear that's going to be taking place within this sector really increases as we get into Saturday afternoon. So there's a lot of high potential of possibly seeing a tornado within this sector as well. So look at the tornado parameter index by the time we get into Saturday afternoon time frame, going into Saturday night, Sunday morning. They're starting to be fairly significant as we include into the warm sector. With that, all that shear going into place, the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted an enhanced risk. But before that, you can see these little isolated bubblers, right? So this line, this kind of gives you an idea of when it might take place. This is about 23Z. This is right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock. We start to see some isolated bubblers ahead of this main line. So these are like discrete little supercells, renegades. They're going to be popping up out of the head of the main line and kind of form into a squall line as well as this actually moves across. So yeah, the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted and upgraded to an enhanced risk. So a slight risk essentially from Dallas all the way to Bowling Green. And then in the middle, where we into Greenville, into portions of Little Rock, into Memphis, into Jackson, going all the way into Chattanooga, you have a little bit higher probability of severe weather. So we're talking widespread thunderstorms are expected from the Arklatex to the western Appalachians on New Year's Day. So this is New Year's Day time frame. All severe weather hazards are on the table, including large hail, damaging winds, and yes, tornadoes. And some of those could be strong with all the dynamics in place. You can see this huge area of real estate that it covers as it really starts to get its act together and moves from west to east. Now let's highlight the tornado potential, because they really increased this and it has expanded. Now we're talking a hatch risk. A hatch risk typically applies anywhere in these little dotted shaded areas. You have the potential to seeing a strong tornado indicative of possibly an EF2 tornado caliber. And so within this zone, going into Memphis, Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, the Birmingham, Alabama area, Huntsville, Alabama, all the way to Chattanooga, you're in that favored zone to possibly seeing a strong tornado as well as a QLCS tornado. Now, what does that mean? That's a quasi-linear convective system. Typically, they form very quickly with little to no warning, and they typically form along that squall line like I showed you in the back half. So we'll have initiation to kind of discrete supercells form, but then on the back half we'll have kind of a nasty squall line with very damaging winds, and within that sector we could have very fast popping moving tornadoes pop up and then race across in a linear fashion. So that's the dangerous setup, and this could be at night too. So we're talking a potential strong tornadoes and QLCS tornadoes, as well as these form with renegades in the front half and then squall line tornadoes on the back half as this moves across. So this is, and you can see it's a multi-state type of setup. So this is this pretty significant event as this pushes off to the east. But not only are they dealing with that, but the Weather Prediction Center has highlighted a moderate risk for excessive rainfall as these convective bands and that squall line really kind of train over the same area. So that flash flooding is the most significant event for possibly death. So yeah, you can get caught up in a situation in no time flat with flash flooding. So the best information I can probably tell you is to stay home. I mean, it's going to be nasty in portions of this area of the country, in Arkansas and to Kentucky and to Tennessee, going into parts of West Virginia, with all the severe weather threat that potentially is on the table, as well as the very heavy rain. And unfortunately, right here in Kentucky, where they've got hit hard with the tornadoes as of late in that 10th, 11th setup, they're going to get hit hard again, unfortunately, with a nasty setup unfolding on Saturday, the New Year's Day time frame. And let's break down these little excessive rainfall risk categories. So if you were in the marginal risk zone, on this map, so what can you expect? You expect a little bit of a kind of isolated flash flooding potential possibility. Once you get into this slight risk, it's more scattered. So you have more scattered kind of activity or potential kind of flash flooding. Many localized or most vulnerable areas are kind of urban areas, roads that are small streams, are kind of isolated significant flash flooding possible, right? But once you get into the moderate risk, which really includes pretty much northern Arkansas, going into parts of Tennessee, as well as pretty much, like I mentioned, the entire state of Kentucky and portions of West Virginia, that could be a more significant type of event with numerous flash floods likely. And with that, significant events, possibly many streams and many flood potential portions of large rivers. So that is very, somewhat rare to see kind of a moderate risk. And sometimes it goes high. High is only about 4% of these severe weather events. So yes, a moderate risk for such a large area real estate is really significant on top of the severe weather threat that is expecting. So we're talking multiple inches of rain and coming in a short amount of time with very convective banding setting up. So that is very dangerous. That you need to be made weather aware of if you live in those areas. And then yes, as it pushes off to the southeast, we still have that, severe weather threat as it continues. And right now, day 3, the marginal risk for portions of Jackson, Florida, Florida, get into the Charlotte, North Carolina, that extends going into Atlanta, as well as into Greensboro, North Carolina. So yes, I'm expecting this to probably intensify as well as it gets closer to your area by then. So you can definitely see this covers a pretty big, significant, area of real estate. But there's also a cold side. So there's a snowier side too. So let's go over that. So by the time we get into Saturday, Friday night, going into Saturday morning, we'll have the snow coming in today for Colorado that goes into Denver. That as we get into tomorrow morning on Saturday morning, the 1st, this is about 6 o'clock in the morning, we should start to see some heavier snow start to break out in Nebraska, going into Kansas here. On the southern flank, we'll have some icy setups too. So we have to be dealing with that, especially as we get into the afternoon hours with that Arctic air plunging from the north to the south. And it's a big time cold front. This is definitely by far the strongest cold front of the season. And down to the south, you got that's the warm sector. That's the severe weather threats. You got that heavy convective banding. We're talking 1 to 2 inches per hour potential of snowfall rates, especially as you get into portions of Iowa, going into northern Illinois. This goes into southern Wisconsin as well as Michigan. Down to the south, they've got another system on the back half that's going to be coming across as a trough. But it's going to be extremely dry below 700 millibars, and a lot of this area is going to be able to kind of evaporate as it moves through with that Arctic air. Arctic air is your driest air, and it's just going to be able to evaporate any precipitation that may try to fall out of that atmosphere in the back half system. But the front end system is still going to bring the snow as it extends through Canada. I mean, it doesn't really affect the Northeast that much of all, but you could have some back half too. But man, look at the Arctic air by the time we get into Sunday morning. This is Sunday morning, January 2nd temperatures at 6 a.m. These are actual temperatures, folks. We're talking anywhere in green is below 0 and up to 20 below 0 into parts of Montana and the Dakotas, going into Minnesota here. And then look at the below 0 temperatures go all the way down into Kansas, and then we're talking teens and upwards, even portions of single digits in Oklahoma. Widespread 20s for Texas, and this, as this continues to push across, so we're talking 20 degrees possibly in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that is some very cold stuff, from considering what you've been through lately with all the very warm average, well above average temperatures. There's your feels like. I mean, below 0 feels like temperatures in Oklahoma. That's some dangerous stuff that you're just not used to for parts of the South, especially if you've been so warm. I mean, we're talking temperatures have been in the 80s here. So to get a feels like wind chill of 5 degrees in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that is going to be a rapid shock to your system. So definitely be prepared for that, with that Arctic air really starting to make a beeline, and that is on Sunday morning. But as they continue just to push off, we'll have that same system again drying out in the upper levels on the back half here. There's not much precipitation is going to be able to fall into portions of the Northeast. We may have some sporadic, snow showers. They're going to fall on the back half of this system, but there's not much accumulation to be dealing with. But on the western flank, we'll have as temperatures try to kind of warm up a little bit, most of the stuff, at least along the coastline next week in, say, Seattle and Portland, will be all in the form of rain and not snow, as the snow has stopped for you and moves towards more or less into the interior regions. But you get the rain all week, right? But there's the cold air. I mean, there's the cold air by the time we get into Monday. Everybody gets in the action. All of Texas is pretty much below freezing. Goes all the way to Louisiana, goes all the way to Mississippi and Alabama. That'll clear the atmosphere. You can't get severe weather when the temperature is 20 degrees, right? That's not going to happen. I mean, it tries to warm up by midweek. We try to warm up. We do warm up a little bit. But the Gulf, I mean, the temperatures have come down so dramatically with this Arctic air mass. By the time this next cold front arrives, there won't be any severe weather with this one. It's just going to be some more Arctic air. So we do warm up by Wednesday with the 70s and approaching 65, say, in Dallas. But there's the new Arctic air mass with below 0 temperatures. These are high temperatures on Wednesday. So yes, by the time we get into that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday time frame, we have another Arctic plunge that's going to come down and have another significant cool down or cold blast that comes in as the West finally starts to warm up and you start to share some of your colder air that you've been getting as of late with the rest of the country. So, hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already. I greatly appreciate you watching. Do share this video with your friends and family because we got a ton of a situation they need to be made weather aware of. I appreciate you watching. Catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after storm.